You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And we're back with some more main course for you. And I'm talking about the Saints' 34-10 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. The New Orleans Saints losing to the Los Angeles Rams this past Sunday, dropping them to 1-8 on the season. I mean, each week and seems as the years kind of going on and when they face formidable opponents like the Los Angeles Rams, it's kind of like known kind of going into the game that they're not going to win or they don't really have any chance. And, you should be preparing yourself for what you're about to witness. But even with preparing yourself and telling yourself and making your own predictions of how bad they're going to lose, still it seems a lot harder actually having to watch it and live through it than predicting that you already know they're going to be terrible. Because the Saints, man, they put a heck of a performance down against the Rams in regards to a bad football team. Just going off of some team stats that are just embarrassing. And really, I don't know how the Rams didn't score like a 50 burger on the Saints and how the Saints scored any points at all. I just want to, before I start getting into player stats and things like that, some of our picks from the previous podcast, I just want to go through these team stats that are just disgusting. Like the Rams were like 3 times as good as the Saints last Sunday, like literally, like in everything. They doubled or tripled them up on it. But just off of like first down, the Saints had 10, the Rams had 30. Like that's wild. Third down efficiency, the Saints were 2 for 9, the Rams were 7 for 14. On fourth down, the Saints were 0-2 on fourth down. The Rams were 2-2 on fourth downs. And some of those fourth downs were really kind of annoying. Definitely the last one. What was it? The fourth and goal one where they went for it when they were already up. They're already up like 23 or 27 to 10 or 27 to 10 and went for it anyways. That was a little annoying. But as Saints fans, you can't get too mad about that after having Sean Payton for 15 years running the score up on teams, either good teams or bad teams. But that one was a little annoying. And then the 40 total plays to the Rams 70, so they almost doubled them in plays. Total yardage 224 for the Saints, 438 for the Rams. So basically doubled them there. And let's see. The only like real kind of one of the few bright spots is the Saints weren't terrible in regards to penalties. They only had 5 penalties for 33 yards. But the thing is that the Rams only had 3 for 32. And one of those penalties was a really bad one. That was on I think the Saints' second defensive drive where the Saints had them. Looked like they had them stopped for like a 4th and 6 stop. So there wasn't a huge potential for the Rams to go for it there either, but it looked like they had them stopped on a third and 6, and what would have got them to 4th and 6. And then out comes the defensive pass interference call on Kool-Aid McKinstry, and then they show the highlight of it where it looks like the receiver barely got out of like the 5-yard 5 yard range of where you're not supposed to like touch the receiver at all, but you can press, within 5 yards. And didn't even look like he pulled him or wrapped him around or saw any like jersey pull or anything. And got Kool-Aid McKinstry what looked like a pass breakup, and the Saints defense being able to get off the field on third down. Nope, first down, and then of course the Rams are going to capitalize on something like that, and of course they went up 14 to nothing from that point. And we've experienced that as Saints fans and Hoodats. We've experienced that all year. The 14, just start down 14, and just any game this year, just go from there. And the Saints are just scratching and clawing, trying to get back in these games. And then turnovers, 2-0, obviously. And then like this was like a record, I do believe, like up there close to being like the top 10 in the top 10 worst time of possession margin in NFL history, actually, and maybe the worst in Saints. I can't remember the exact record for that, but yeah, the Saints had 16 minutes and 7 seconds of possession time, while the Rams had 43 minutes and 53 seconds of possession time. Like they almost had the ball like pretty much the entire time. And they did like have the ball. They literally did have the ball for like the entire time in the what was that in the third quarter. They had the ball for like just their first starting drive of that of the third quarter. They had the ball for like 8 minutes on an 8 minute touchdown drive, and then the Saints got the ball back and threw an intercept. No, fumbled, and Alvin Kamara fumbled it away, where it looked like the Saints were kind of moving around midfield and looking to try to get the score cut back down to just a 10-point score, because it was 10 to 27 there. So they were trying to get it to 17 to 27 there. But yeah, it's just like that was kind of, I mean, the game was pretty much over from the second the Rams had like 17 points, because that alone would have been enough to beat the Saints, and they shut them out in the second half. But that was kind of like the nail in the coffin, the last real gasp of hope of momentum that the Saints maybe had possibly to get back in this game. Was a very, very reminiscent fumble by Alvin Kamara, kind of similar to the one he had earlier in the season to Fred Warner, and the one that he had in 2024 to Fred Warner, where it's like the Saints are looking to be moving, looking to either tie or cut into the lead a little bit, and then Alvin Kamara just fumbles. And we've seen that all year from Saints players. The Saints players have just been molested and just abused with receiving peanut Tillman punches and having the ball knocked out and raked out like on seems like every single play, where it's either a gang tackle or they're getting tackled from a trailing pursuing defender. It's like you're almost guaranteed it's like 50%, 50-50 on whether that ball's coming loose. Maybe it's not officially a fumble, but it's going to be ball on the ground. It's going to give you a heart attack every single time. But anyway, so that's just team stats. It just tells you how gross and terrible this game was. I'll just go over player stats real quick, and then we'll get into MVPs and hot takes. But anyways, so let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And so the first thing is Tyler Shuck. We were kind of hoping Tyler Shuck would come in this game and we'd get a spark from him, and maybe show us something that Spencer Rattler wasn't able to show us. But I mean, with the amount of time that he had the ball and the production that he was putting out there, it's really kind of hard to know really yet what we got from Tyler Shuck. It was just, like I said, he was hardly on the field, and it was just very Spencer Rattler-esque kind of performance. It wasn't any better, and can't really say it was any worse, even though it wasn't a good performance. But like I said, didn't get enough. I didn't even have 20 minutes of possession time to really know. But Tyler Shuck was 15 for 24 for 176 yards, which is a 7.3 average, one touchdown, one interception, and the interception was just kind of like a last gasp 4th and 4. It wasn't a good throw, and he was able to make a little bit of time scrambling out of the pocket and all that, but then just stares down a receiver on an out route and throws an interception, which was lucky that that wasn't returned for a pick six or a bigger return than it was. But as if it would have mattered really. And then one of the few positives for Tyler Shuck here is that he was only sacked once. He was only sacked once for 9 yards. So that's a positive, I guess, if you're looking for any positives with Tyler Shuck, is that he was only sacked once. But you can circle right back around to, well, he wasn't on the field enough. He didn't throw it enough to be sacked more than once, anyways, because he never had the ball. Because the Saints defense was allowing such long possessions, and then when the Saints would get the ball back, they would like turn it over like a couple plays later. Just not a good performance. No complimentary football from defense or offense in this game, which we'd seen a little bit of a spark seemed like from the defense since the Chicago and the Buccaneers game, but it seemed like that was blown out in this game. And then he had a 72.3 QBR and an 81.2 rating. And then Taysom Hill threw it once for 0 attempts. It wasn't able to complete his one attempt. And then the rushing game just continues to be absolutely terrible, just like the passing game, or just kind of similar to how the defense was good like the past 2 weeks. The Saints are going into like 3 weeks in a row where their running game has been absolutely terrible. Your leading rusher on the day, which I'm not mad at, but wish it was more than this. But you had Taysom Hill had 4 carries for 30 yards, which is a 7.5 average, 0 touchdown. But the long was 29 yards. So he was on his 3 other carries, he was only able to gain like 1 yard, and they brought him in, I think, for both of those fourth down attempts. They tried to go for it on fourth down power, QB powers with Taysom Hill, but just weren't able to pick him up. But besides like the fourth down, the not the fourth, the 2 minute drive where the Saints were able to get their only touchdown of the game, which I mentioned how Tyler Shuck was only sacked one time, which was a positive. But Tyler Shuck's handling of the 2 minute warning and able to get us the touchdown there was impressive. But besides that, the 29-yard run by Taysom Hill, where he showed that he still got a little bit of juice and he was able to shake off a couple defenders and rumbling for 29 yards. Like we talk, seems like every week, I feel as if I need to make this like a segment on this podcast for how bad the Saints are, to where we pick out like the highest moment or the most positive moment in the Saints game for where we should decide that's the moment we should just go ahead and turn this off. And that'll leave us as happy as we could possibly be with this team currently. And that probably would have been the 29-yard rumbling and stumbling run by Taysom Hill that I was surprised more than anything that he still had as much speed as he did, because that kind of seemed to be kind of the issue with him, was that sideline to sideline motion and just this absolute like burst and top end speed. But he showed that he still had something there. But sad that he ends up being their leading rusher on the day for 14 carries for 57 yards with an average of 4.1 yards a carry, no touchdowns. And then Alvin Kamara just had 6 carries for 14 yards. We got to see a little bit more of Devin Neal with 3 carries, but for only 11 yards. And then Shuck had 1 carry for 2 yards. So pretty lackluster, and just that I can't remember a time or a stretch for the Saints running game being so absolutely terrible. It's just awful. Them just watching them just try to run running back powers or QB powers like right up the middle. It just doesn't seem like there's anything schemed to try to get Alvin Kamara out in space, or you got a bigger, younger back in Devin Neal. Like he's the one that should probably be slamming up in there trying to get first downs. But anyways, to the Saints receiving game, we had a five reception for Rashid Shaheed. You had 5 receptions for 68 yards, a 13.6 average, and a long of 26. Olave had 3 catches for 57 yards, a 19 average, a long of 27. And then Juwan Johnson had catches for 31 yards, a 10.3 average, and had the touchdown on the 2-point conversion to end the first half, and actually cut into the Rams lead, cut it down to just 20-10, so cut it to a 10-point deficit, and had a little bit of excitement and a little glimmer of hope going into the second half, but truly couldn't have predicted that they were going to actually come back and win or even make it a competitive game. Like that's as competitive as it was when the score was 20-0 or 20-10 or 0-0. And then he had a long of 20, and then Brandon Cooks had 2 catches for 16, 8 average, no touchdown, a long of 10, and then Alvin Kamara had 1 for 3, and Devin Mill had 1 for 1. And then we talked about Tyler Shuck's interception on fourth and 4, and then we also talked about Alvin Kamara's fumble loss, which that came after the Rams went back up in the lead. Well, they took the lead back. They went back up 17 on the Saints to where it wasn't a 10-point game anymore. But so the Saints were driving, trying to cut it back down to a 10-point lead, and then you have Alvin Kamara fumble, and just like the worst moment of the game. You're trying to get back in the game and trying to get kind of a understanding and a kind of a profile of your young rookie quarterback, and looked like he might have had kind of a drive going, and then Alvin Kamara just fumbles it away, and just like the multiple nails in the coffin, stakes in the coffin. That was just one of them from this game. I think people probably would look back at that on the 2 fourth down attempts that they went for, like a 4th and 2, 4th and 1, when they were getting close to the Rams red zone. You know, you hear this on one hand where people are saying like you should leave your rookie quarterback in on a play like that. You know, he looked like he was kind of getting in a rhythm, and you want to get a profile and really critique what he's doing. That you shouldn't take him out to put in Taysom Hill to try to pick up the 4th down, doing the quarterback power, because all the defenses know about it. But if you left Tyler Shuck in there and he didn't pick it up, people would be screaming like, "Why didn't you run the QB power or have Taysom Hill in there? He was guaranteed to pick up that 2 yards or that 1 yard, but he didn't." So people are complaining about Tyler Shuck getting pulled for Taysom Hill on a couple of those runs, but I don't think it would have changed anything all that much. And then defense, your 2 leading tacklers on the day, Justin Reed had 13 total with 7 solo and a pass deflection. Mario Davis had 13 total with 4 solo. And then you had a revenge game here with Jonah Williams getting his first start, or his first real snaps since he came over from the Rams to the Saints. But Jonah Williams had 3 total tackles, 2 solo, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hit. So impressive. So even though the Saints didn't win, I would say Jonah Williams had kind of like his Devin Gotchu game several weeks ago against the Patriots. You kind of had your best defender was the guy that was trying to have his revenge game in Jonah Williams. And then Chase Young showed up again, you know, not just showing that he can get almost sacks and almost pressures and things like that. He was 2 for 2, two total, 2 solo, 1 sack, tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. So nice to see Chase Young string together some sacks there. But really, after that, there weren't a whole lot of playmakers on the Saints defense for today, and just these drives that the Rams had where they were going on these 14, 15 play drives that were taking up 6 to 8 minutes, like literally taking up like half the quarter, and not just playing just absolute like Hall of Fame level game of keep away against the Saints. The Saints just couldn't get the ball and couldn't control it, and when they had a chance at moving the ball, they just turn it over. And then kick return. This was one that was a little surprising and it's starting to get a little bit annoying. It feels like this was kind of the first time people have noticed that the Saints a lot of times this season have won the opening the coin toss, but for some reason I understand what the reason is. I know Kellen Moore, he wants to get a fast start and wants to maybe try to be in a game where they're not trailing like from the jump. But he needs to cut this whole receiving. We want to receive the ball thing out of his coaching plan because it's not working. The Saints are have only gone down and scored like on their first drive of the game like once this year. So it's just a complete waste of a drive and waste of an opportunity to have the ball first in the second half, deciding that you want to receive the ball. But he received the ball again in this game first, and of course they go 3 and out. But it was interesting to see Rashid Shaheed uh, uh, be back there to do a return when there was swirling news about maybe Rashid Shaheed, Alante Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, guys like that, possibly uh, being traded, but then having him back right out the jump at kickoff return, which can be a bit of a car wreck on some of the hits there. Seemed kind of interesting. Kind of made it seem like maybe the Saints are wanting to keep Rashid Shaheed, or they're going to keep Rashid Shaheed, or maybe they're showing him off to other teams. But definitely showed that he can do everything because Rashid Shaheed had one uh, kickoff return for 29 yards and then had one punt return for 9 yards and had his numbers, the numbers that he had receiving as well. So he put something out there maybe for a team that was interested. Maybe we'll get into some of the trade deadline at the end here, but yeah, Rashid Shaheed, the Saints weren't afraid to show him off in this game against the Rams, whether they were deciding to keep him or if they were wanting to trade him. And then kicking special teams, Blake Grupe was 1 for 1 on kicks, which was just a long of 39, and then just the one extra point, 1 for 1 on extra point. And then Kai Kroger was actually halfway decent in this game. He was 4 for 184 with an average of 46, but had touchbacks, not two touchbacks, but two punts inside the 20, but definitely the first one that he got inside the 20 was like inside the Rams like 10, which was impressive. It's not something you've seen a whole lot from Kyle Kroger this year, um, a long of 49. But I knew on the one where he punted them like inside their own 10, I knew like, oh, they're just going to march right down the field and score anyways. And of course, that's exactly what happened on that drive. They just marched right down the field on one of those 14, 15 play drives that takes up 6, 8 minutes of the game and capped it off with a touchdown as if it mattered at all. But those are your stats for the Saints. Here's just some go overs, just some kind of ridiculous ones that the that that the Rams had. So the Saints were terrible running the ball, but the Rams just rammed it and stuffed it down the Saints' throat in the running game. Even though it didn't feel like they were getting run over all that bad, maybe it was just because of the great passing performance that Matthew Stafford had. But man, they got ran on for 43 carries for 171 yards, an average of 4 yards a carry, and a touchdown. But only a long of 21. Blake Corum and Kyron Williams had one for 15, but Kyrie Williams had 25 carries for 114 yards and the touchdown, and Blake Corum had 13 carries for 58 yards. But Matthew Stafford had like a ridiculous day. Like just in the first quarter, he had like was like almost like 80% completion percentage and 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he ended up finishing the day 24 of 32 for 281 yards and 8.8 average, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 2 sacks for 14 yards, QBR of 70.9, and a rating of 140.8. Wow, that's bad. And then just for their receivers, We talked about how what a coincidence, that Puka Nakua's been hurt a good portion of this year, but of course he's going to make it back for the game against the Saints, where I'm expecting him to have like 6 or 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Well, he had 7 catches off of 8 targets for 95 yards, which was an average of 13.6 and a touchdown and a long of 39 yards. Just absolutely just bullying and just clowning and sunning Saints defensive backs in this game to the point where he finally ended up getting hurt on a play. I think it was like a run play, possibly, or a play where he was maybe that wasn't a run play. It doesn't show that he had any carries, but it was like a short pass or a screen pass or something where he ended up getting tackled to the ground and landing on the ball and getting a chest or not knocking the wind out of anybody or something, or he would have put even more of a hurting, even bigger of a hurting on the Saints than what they got. And then even Devontae Adams had 50 or had 5 catches for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. And it was Brendan Fisk who had the sack, and Cameron Kitchens had the recovered the fumble, and let's see, interception here. And Emmanuel Forbes Jr. was the one that had the interception, and luckily was only able to return it for 7 yards. But those are all the stats, the player stats and team stats. Let's get into MVPs, hot takes, picks, and scores, and then we'll just finish with the trade deadline updates information that we've had. So for my MVP, just because I hadn't seen him before, and it seemed like kind of like a cop out pick that maybe a rookie quarterback will go into a game, and maybe the opposing team won't really know what to expect from him, and they don't have a whole lot of film on him. That maybe he'll be able to put up some decent numbers and maybe give the Saints offense a little bit of a spark. And even if he throws 2 interceptions, if he at least throws 2 touchdowns as well, and maybe more than 230 yards, which is the most that Spencer Rattler has been able to get up to, was just like 233. If he's able to throw for like 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and even 2 interceptions would be nice. And so we were hoping for a spark from Tyler Shuck, but we didn't get that. And you can blame it partially on Shuck. You can partially blame it on the running game, and then you can partially blame it on like the defense. Just didn't have enough time of possession. He didn't get enough snaps. We didn't really get to see enough of him, but he performed, I guess, well enough to where I'm wanting to see some more. I'd like to see him in a game where maybe it's 50-50 on time of possession between the two teams that are playing each other, and then maybe have a better grade for Tyler Shuck. But can't say that he's the offensive player of this game. And because I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but because I want to talk about the trade deadline at the end here. But because he was traded, and he'll no longer be a Saint, and this was his last game as a Saint, and really because no other player really put up any really great numbers or anything. Only argument you'd maybe have is Joel Johnson had the touchdown on the 2-minute drive, but besides that, other than that, he only had 3 catches for 31 yards, so not overly impressive. But because he won't be a Saint anymore, I just go ahead and give the Player of the Game award for Offensive Player of the Game. Give it to Rashid Shaheed. So he had 5 catches for 68 yards, a 13.3 average, and no touchdowns, along of 26. Like I said, no other offensive player had any really more impressive numbers than that. No quarterback, or especially not the running game. So let's go ahead and give it to Rashid Shaheed for offensive player of the game for this game. And then defense, we talked a little bit about Jonah Williams having his kind of his revenge game. Well, I think he put up the numbers and he put forward the effort in regards to saying at least he showed out and wanted the revenge game to come true, come to fruition but obviously the Saints couldn't get the win. But he still put out good numbers, and would like to. Hopefully, he can improve on that and maybe do that against teams other than the Rams. But he had three total tackles, two solo, a sack, two tackles for loss, and a quarterback hit. So I'm going giving Jonah Williams the defensive player of this game. And then I would have never thought it could come true where I'm actually thinking about giving the punter the special teams player of the game award. There were a couple really good tackles on some punts, and yeah, I think it was some punts where Ike Yadam got down there and blew up some returns, holding them to like no yards and laying a big hit on the returner. So I'm almost wanting to give it to Ike Yadam. Like we're giving it to two players we're not real huge fans of, the Saints punter Kyle Kroger and kind of hopefully stays the reserve backup DB so we can get that comp pick Ike Yadam. But Kyle Kroger, it was the two punts that he had inside the 20 and specifically the one where he pinned him like at like the 8 yard line. I think that was either on the Saints second or third drive. They weren't able to do much with it and maybe got around up close to midfield and were able to pin the Rams at their own 8 yard line. But of course, they ended up going on a on what like a 92 yard touchdown drive. So it didn't really matter anyways. But still, impressive to have the four punts for 84 yards, a 46 average, and two inside the 20, and even a long of 59. So those are your players of the game. Definitely was a far call from actually getting the spark from Tyler Shutt, but hopefully we can see some improvement. Hopefully we can grow from there, even though there's not a lot to pick and pull from this game. But I still want to see more Tyler Shutt before there's rumblings of we need to put Spencer Rattler back in. Just with the confidence of both of those players, I don't think that would be the wisest thing. And it's a little too early to be doing that. Even though there was a couple times where it felt like Kellen Moore was pulling Tyler Shutt for Taysom Hill. It's almost hard to tell about three, 4 times, like 4 or 5 times when they had Taysom Hill back there. Whether are they pulling Tyler Shuck or is Taysom Hill going to be the quarterback or what? But that didn't materialize at all. And then on to pick and score here. So I, the Saints had a couple drives, that ended in turnovers, or they were getting into the Rams red zone, where I guess they went 4 and out once, where they were down in the red zone, so they could have got a field goal there. But I was wanting them to get another touchdown, to at least get 17 points, because my prediction was 35-19, a Rams win, and with the 35 points, we almost got the exact score for the Rams. They scored 34. So I was just hoping the Saints would have been able to score another touchdown there, or even 10 more points would have been nice. So the score, my prediction, would have been almost exactly right. It would have been just 2 or 3 points off from then. But it ended up being worse. The Saints weren't even able to get 19 points. They were only able to put up 10 points. And we were hoping for kind of a repeat performance in this game from the Saints defense. So we were hoping the game would start a little bit better than it did, but we just didn't get any complimentary football from the Saints offense or defense the entire game. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Jumped right to the picks and score, but you know what the pick and score was now. It's 30-19, Rams win, and I think I got pretty close on that, but ended up being more painful to watch than I predicted there. But almost about skipped over my hot takes here. I'm in 2 hot takes. I was hoping for another good like first half performance from the defense, and maybe an opportunity to have another goal line stand in this game, which they did. They got scored on in the red zone a couple times in this game, where they got the Rams to third down, and even the last one where they got in the red zone and went for it all 4 downs. They were got them to fourth down, but then they were able to get the touchdown anyways. I think on a run play, it was who was it? I think it may have been Quorum ended up. No, it was Kyrene Williams ended up running into the end zone on like fourth and goal, like at the 1 yard line. So the Saints almost got that another goal line stand. I think they got scored on in the red zone, like gave up three red zone touchdowns in this game, but got close, got them to third down on two of them, and then got them to fourth down on one of them. But of course, just couldn't keep them out of the end zone. So don't think that hot take hit. And the Saints defense just didn't play good at all in this game, really. So can't say that they had a repeat performance like they had against the Bears and they had against the Buccaneers. They just weren't good at all at any point really in this game. So that hot take doesn't hit. And then Saints rushers. I was hoping a Saints running back or Taysom Hill or quarterback would have at least 50 yards from a singular player. Would have been nice in this game, but we already went over that. The most we were able to muster and scrounge out of any Saints player, and talking about the offensive line as well. You need them to block for these guys to get them yards. We got 30 yards from Taysom Hill off of 4 carries, and all of it, almost all but 1 yard came on a 29-yard run. So he was able to get nothing essentially from the 3 other carries he's had. So both of those hot takes don't hit. So we got the hot takes, the MVP, and we went through picks and score, which a little disappointed on those. It was those 2 drives that they turned the ball over, where it looked like actually the two drives where they turned the ball over, and then the one where they went for it on 4th and 2 down in the red zone and weren't able to get it. Those were the 2 drives that upset me a little bit in regards to the score, because it could have made the score 34-17, which would have been very, very close to what I predicted, a 35-19 for the Rams to win. But nah, not far off from what we predicted. But even predicting the Saints to get blown out, it's much tougher and a lot harder to actually watch it and experience and live through it. Even if you spend so much time like uh, convincing yourself and predicting, and basically I already knew what was going to happen, but still it was not fun or enjoyable at all. And just it feels like the days of them being competitive and trying really hard and being in close games like they were like the first 4 or 5 weeks, it seems like that's dead and gone now for the 2025 season. But anyways, we're looking for a little bit of positive now on this week. We mentioned how the trade deadline is like the most important date or the most excitement that maybe the Saints and Hoodats and Saints fans may have all year since the 5 turnover win against the Giants. And hey, there was some excitement. There was some movement. I'm sure there's some fans and media people that would be happy about it, and then at the same time, there's people that are upset about it, and then there's people that are probably kind of neutral, don't know how to feel about it. But let's get into the trade deadline. The Saints had some moves. The Saints were about to go in to the 2026 draft with only 5 draft picks. So just it was paramount that on the 2025 NFL trade deadline, the Saints had to get some more draft picks. Like no matter who they're trading, like they needed a fire sale, regardless of who they were trading or who other teams were wanting. And I mean, I'm happy that the Saints moved these players. It's a little disappointing because we talked about Rashid Shaheed getting traded earlier, but I would have liked the Saints to maybe get at least a little bit more compensation, or maybe trade another player to where they could have maybe got up to like 9 or 10 picks in the coming draft. But now they only have 7 because they traded Rashid Shaheed. They traded him for a 4th and a 5th in the 2026 draft. So at least they're in the upcoming draft. And this trade is good for one because it was better than the Jacoby Myers trade with the Raiders. The Raiders traded Jacoby Myers for a 4th and a 6th in the 2026 draft. But at the same time, this feels like the Saints are almost like it's more of like a traded Rashid Shaheed for Devon Bailey because they traded Devon Bailey a fourth and a seventh, I believe. But the thing is, the Saints' fourth round pick that's getting that's traded to the Broncos is like a top 100 pick. I think it currently is the 96th pick in the fourth round, the whole the NFL draft. So comparably, I mean, the fourth that we're getting back from the Seahawks is almost more like a fifth round pick than the Saints' fourth round pick traded for Bailey is almost more like a third round pick. So it's a little annoying because it feels like you just traded Rashid Shaheed away for Bailey. But the thing is, Bailey and Rashid Shaheed are the same age, but the Saints still have Bailey under 2 years under contract, which I don't think the Saints were wanting to sign Rashid Shaheed to a big $20 million contract or just letting him walk for nothing so that the Saints were able to take a former undrafted free agent and turn him into a fourth and a fifth round pick. I can live with that, and I can live with the fact that they at least added some more draft picks and compensation for the 2026 draft. And then the Saints only moved one other player at the trade deadline, and it wasn't a player that I was expecting. I was really expecting maybe Alvin Kamara or maybe send both of your starting wide receivers with Chris Olave or Alante Taylor or Pete Warner or some of the players that I was expecting to maybe get traded. But literally at the trade deadline, at the horn, at the buzzer, I was literally watching like ESPN with Adam Schefter. They had the countdown ticker going, and literally with like 5 seconds left, you had Adam Schefter like looking off at his phone and reading off that the Los Angeles Chargers had traded for Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning, no doubt, which I imagine that he's getting traded there not to be a guard like he's been for the 2025 Saints, but to be a tackle for them because they lost Rashawn Slater earlier in the year, maybe even before the season started. Lost him, done for the year, was their left tackle. And then Joe Alt, they moved him to left tackle, who was their right tackle, just tore his ACL, I believe, this past weekend. So they're down both their starting offensive tackles, their left and their right. So I imagine Trevor Penning, if not nothing else, he gets moved back to right tackle for the Chargers and could easily be the starting right tackle for the Los Angeles Chargers now. But of course, Trevor Penning, not viewed as a great player by the Saints, but another player that probably is going to be gone in free agency for nothing, anyways. You're going to let him walk for nothing, anyways, because the Saints didn't pick up his fifth-year option like they did with Chris Olave. And it's really sad seeing a player that was involved in a 2020 NFL draft trade where like a first round pick was basically given up for him to turn around and only get a sixth round pick for him. And it's not just the fact that it's a sixth round pick, it's the fact that it's a 2027 sixth round pick. So that's really my only real beef with the Trevor Penning trade is that they couldn't get a pick in the 2026 draft. I think I would almost really rather a seventh round pick in the 2026 draft than I would a sixth round pick 2 years from now. But that's the Saints. Like they were considered a mover in the trade deadline. It was nothing given up like the Jets did, trading two of their all-star, blue-chip, elite players on defense for multiple first-round picks. The Jets have now 3 extra first-round picks now. Had got 2 for Sauce Gardner and one for Quinn Williams. But man, it'd be nice that if the Saints had quality young players that they could trade to stock up on first and second round picks. But I'm sure you got Saints fans and Hoodats out there complaining like, why couldn't the Saints trade for extra first round picks and all that? Well, they just don't have the talent. it's kind of funny seeing that the Jets are like just as bad a team, but they have multiple first round pick talent, at least on their defense. But yeah, definitely looks like the Jets are stocked up to control these next two drafts, and whether they're how they're wanting to move or if they're wanting to uh, get get a quarterback in the next coming drafts. But just in like a simple like grade for Mickey Loomis and how he handled the trade deadline. I think he did good, and the fact that they didn't sit on their hands and do nothing was better than exactly doing nothing, which would have happened with if Rashid Shaheed would have walked in the offseason and Trevor Penning would have walked in the offseason. You just wouldn't have gotten anything. You'd have to wait an entire year to see if players signed in free agency are going to avoid any type of comp pick that you possibly get. So getting something for them now was great. So I'm giving a grade for Mickey Loomis and the Saints during the trade deadline. I'd probably give them a B minus. And I would, if they'd had another trade or the Trevor Penning 6th round pick would have been in 2026, then I'd probably have given it a B plus. But that, alas, that's what we got. But really, from the whole day, I'm just glad that the Saints have at least seven picks in the 2026 draft. Now, I was pretty scared that the Saints were actually going to go into the 2026 draft with just 5 picks, going into these drafts like they did, like they were going into drafts like from the 17 to 2020 season when they were actually talented and could afford not to bring in a whole new batch of rookies to try to supplement all these old players and players that aren't any good. But the Saints did something, which is, like I said, better than nothing, which is probably what we were going to end up getting if we'd have waited and just sat on our hands and did nothing. But I still would have probably liked them to have moved at least one more player. Would have been nice. Would have been nice to get another 5th or 4th or 5th round pick. But anyways, so that's the end of the trade deadline for the 2025 season, and that's the Saints 34-10 loss to the Los Angeles Rams and dropping them to 1-8. And we'll have more talk and get more into the Carolina Panthers game coming up later in the week. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?